welcome to a jewellery tutorial from Eclectic Enchantments. I'm Erica, and I am going to be showing you how to make a piece of jewellery today that is inspired by the Edwardian era. During the Edwardian times, which was 1901 to 1910, people would wear hairbands, and they would have their hair curled and the hairbands would go over the top of the curls. Some of them were quite basic, some of them were material, some of them were more elaborate. This is a piece that I made before that is a little bit more of an elaborate headband. As you can see, it's got dragonflies and vines on it. This is made from antique bronze, and there's lots of different gemstones. We've got Bouquet and peridot, there's some jasper and some Swarovski crystals. And so this would have been more one of the more elaborate, probably more likely to be something worn on a wedding day. And I also made a little dragonfly hair grip as well to go with it. But today I wanted to do something a bit more simple. So on the blog post from which you found this video, you'll see the picture of the original piece that I used as inspiration. This was my practice piece that I made before doing this tutorial. This is just made from some basic copper wire and some faux pearls, and it's just a very basic, that's my dog. Okay, now he stopped barking. So yeah, this is just a basic double headband, and they would decorate with pearls or flowers and things like that. And this is just a basic one that I've made inspired by the original picture. And as you can see, it's a double band, so one bit would sit further back on the head than the other, and there's some flowers and little sprays coming out of it. But what I'm going to actually show you how to make today is something a little bit more modern. So it's an Edwardian inspired jewellery tutorial, so it'll be a double headband, but we're going to actually do it on black wire. This is copper wire that has been coated in black, and I've got 3 gauges of that. We've got a 0.8, a 0.4 and a 0.315mm black coated colour copper wire, and we'll use these to make the headband itself and to attach the gemstones. For gemstones, I'm going to be using coloured coloured quartz chips and nuggets, and these are really brightly coloured, so they're going to look really great against the black wire. And they're also really modern colours, they're very bright, so I really like these. They're going to be perfect. I'm also going to be hopefully making some flowers to put on the headband that will have petals made from these coloured, they're called long teeth, and these are made from crushed shells, and they're really pretty, again really bright and vibrant. I'm not sure whether these flowers will go on the headband yet. A lot of the time when I'm creating something, I will adapt it as I go along. So the other idea that I had for a flower would be using these small shell hearts. They're really pretty, but they'd be perfect for making flower petals. And I've also got 2 buttons that are butterflies, which we'll attach as well. So these would be very vogue at the moment with the type of headbands that people seem to be wearing, with lots of flowers and extremely floral and pretty and very bohemian. So we're going to make something gem encrusted along those lines that is inspired by the Edwardian era. We're also going to need some tools, so we'll need a pair of flat nose pliers. These have got a flat piece on the inside, it's a flat edge, And you can get ones that go all the way up, or you can get tapered ones. I'm using the tapered ones. A pair of round nose pliers. These are tapered cylinders so that you can create curves in the wire or loops, etc. And a pair of flush wire cutters. You can get normal wire cutters, but I prefer the flush ones. They have a flat side on one of the edges so that you can make sure that you get a nice crisp edge. So let's get started. So the first part of making this headband is going to be to create the actual band itself. And for this you're going to need either two separate lengths of wire or one length. Ordinarily I would use a really thick wire, but I don't have that in the black. This wire that I've used in copper is actually 1.6 millimeters. So what I plan to do with this is to create one long strand and twist it to create a thicker strand so that the wires are stronger and it will hold its form a lot better. So the thing to do here would be to take around a metre, which is, if you stretch your arms out, it would be as long as your arms. And I always say to cut more wire than what you actually need, because you can always take some off, but you can never add it on, or it's quite difficult to put additional wire on if you make a mistake. So just roughly trim that. Never work with wire that is any longer than the length of your arms. It's the same sort of rule as when you're sewing, because it's very hard, becomes a lot more confusing and a lot more complicated to actually keep everything together. So here we have the wire, and all I've done is folded it in half and hold it at the looped end. So as you can see, the two ends meet at that end. Okay, now what you want to do is to squeeze together the ends of the wire. Now because this is coated wire, it can actually be damaged, so you can actually lose the colour, the black colour off of the wire itself. I don't know whether the camera will pick this up, but you can see the copper core of the wire inside, so that copper will come through, but the ends of your headband are going to actually be covered, so it's perfectly okay to use your pliers without worrying about the damage, because we're going to cover them up at the end. Then all you want to do is to just grab hold of the end with the pliers, leave yourself with a little loop, and securely hold it in one hand and twist. And you just want to keep twisting uniformly as you go down. It doesn't have to be extremely neat. This is just the base of your headband. So just keep doing that until you get to the end of the length that you have cut. Okay, so here is the piece of wire that has been twisted, and as you can see, I'll try and zoom right in for you. The twisting gives a nice plaited effect to the wire, and it gives it a little bit of texture, which is actually quite nice. If I show you how different it is to using the plain wire there, which has got wire wrapped around it, you can see the difference in the texture. Okay, now your wire might be a little bit bendy, wobbly, not quite perfectly straight. That's absolutely fine. You can either straighten it out by pulling it and running your fingers along it. This can take some work, or you can leave it, and I think for a modern look, that's quite a nice idea. So we're going to leave it for now. You can always shape it later on. Now fold the wire in half, taking both ends together and just pulling it out into the middle, and that gives you your basic double strand. Now you need to find out how long you want it. This should be roughly the right length already. As you can see, it works out the same length there. So the best measurement for that is an arm's length. Works out the best. So for the moment, we're going to put that to one side. Now the best idea is going to be to make a few components. Okay, so now we've set the headband to the side, we now need to look at the flowers. Now, as I said, there's a few different ways that we can make flowers, but I thought it would be nice to use some really modern, bright, vibrant colours. So we've got the ones that are made with the shell. So if I zoom in on those for you, and the little shell hearts. They're all very easy to make, and as you can see in the centre there is a piece of quartz to represent the centre. Whenever you do flowers you should do odd numbers because petals are always in odd numbers. So if I show you how to make these, we'll start off with the little flower heart bouquet. As you can see, it's 5 individual hearts and they've been made up on separate strands. Each individual component looks like this, and each component is made up of one piece of wire and one heart. So the easiest way to show you the easiest way for you to see how to do it is to show you. So you take one of the hearts and a length of wire and thread the heart about halfway down and then fold the wire around the back. Then take the heart in one hand, both pieces of the wire, ends in the other, and twist the heart. And that gives you a stem. And that gives you one component. So if I show you this again, one piece of wire and thread on the heart around halfway, fold it over, take the heart between your thumb and your finger and the pieces of wire between your others and twist. There we go. The next bit that you want to do is to get your 5 strands that you've made and grab the hearts in one hand and the stems in the other, and do exactly the same as you did when making the individual ones and just twist them, putting them together. You want this excess left on because you'll be able to attach it to the headband that way. Then just twist each of the hearts around and the wire will let you sculpt them essentially into a little heart flower. It's as easy as that. The next one is the shell flowers. So as I said, these are created using these beads, which are, they're called teeth, and these ones are made from shells and then dyed. So we're going to need 7 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm using a mixture of pink and purple because I think the colours go really nice together in these shades. The next thing that you want is a length of the 0.3 wire again. So it doesn't really matter, so long as you take more than what you need, you're okay. I'm using one that's, I suppose, about 30 centimetres long, which is more than what I need, a lot more. The next thing that you do is to thread on all 7. And you want to do this in one go, unlike the heart flowers where you do one at a time. So when it lets me thread on all 7. And of course, because I'm filming, it's that much harder. Okay, so that's 4, 3 more to go. Okay, now take the end and allow the beads to fall into the centre. So you've got all 7 on. Then what you want to do is to take one of the end beads and rethread the opposite end of the wire through, so you have 2 strands going through one hole. So as you can see, they're going in opposite directions, one end going through that way and one end going through the right. Okay, then what you do, just gently pull them together. It doesn't matter if it looks a mess while you're doing it. So you pull them together and that is your base for your flower petals. Now to secure it, what you want to do is to just thread one of the ends through the centre, around and up a couple of times just to secure it, and then pull it again and it will re-secure it nice and tightly. Then if we take a contrasting quartz stone, so if we pick one of the green ones and simply take the other end of the wire, pop that through, sorry that went off, and across to the opposite side, and then thread your wire back up through the centre. So you're going over, under and up, and then again just do a second loop just to secure it in place. Then you have your finished flower, and you can make as many of these as you want. As a rule, I would say use groups of 3. Sorry, that's got caught a little bit. Use groups of 3 and you can't go wrong. They'll always look right. Or you know, you can use a combination. You can do whichever flowers you want. You could make flowers using chips and nuggets, or you could do ones like on the practice headband, where all I've done is just add some little, there, a little centerpiece over the top of looped beads. So I looped them in the same way. Okay, so now we go back to the headband and we want to start shaping it a little. It doesn't have to be too precise, because once you've got it finished and you pop it on your head, you can shape it a lot easier, or you can do that at this stage. So long as you get the basic shape, you're absolutely fine, and you'll find that you'll mould it more as you're working on the piece. Now, what we want to do to begin with is to leave this open. It will make threading a lot easier and sewing on the new beads. So we want to start at the looped end, and we just want to squeeze that a little bit just to give a bit of a tighter loop. Okay, so then you want to take a length of the 0.4 wire or a thin wire. You can use any gauge wire that you want. I just prefer to use these gauges. Again, think about the length of wire that you're using. Never use more than an arm's length. And what you want to do now is to start weaving on the beads. So now we've got the basic shape to the headband, we want to start weaving the beads on. So take a length of the thin wire, and you can use any gauge that you want so long as it goes through, but I find the thinner the wire, the easier it is to go on, and 0.4 or 0.3 are a lot easier to use as there's less chance of them snapping, but they're thin enough and pliable enough to be quite flexible. whereas a 0.2 wire could quite easily snap, but it's entirely your choice. What you want to first start doing is attach your first strand of wire to your headband. So if I just zoom in a little bit for you there. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is to just pop the wire through. Okay, and do this a couple of times just on the loop at the end to secure it. Then hold the end of the wire that you've just wrapped and take the longer length and wrap it around. And what this will do is secure both pieces in place. Now you can have this bit as tight as you want and just go back over it a couple of times just to give it a foundation. Now we're going to be working with the front piece of the headband first, and as you can see on this one, we're going to just do a basic strand initially. So we've got 10 pearls there on that one, but what we're going to do is to add the coloured quartz instead. So if I zoom out a little bit so you can see it a little bit easier. Okay, so first of all, work out which side you want the beads to come from and separate your two lengths. And then what you want to do is to just gently wrap the wire following the grooves on the headband that you've made if you've twisted, or just over the plain wire if you use just plain one length without twisting, and wrap it around and twist and pull until you get roughly about a quarter of the way along the wire. Now you want this to be, if you was using a lighter coloured wire such as copper or silver or even gold coloured wire, you would find that this wrapping method would actually show up a lot more than it does on the black. So you really want to try to do this as neatly as possible, and just try to keep the tension on your wire as you're twisting it. Hold it as you pull it through and make sure to pull the lengths through each time, otherwise it can get quite tangled because you're working with quite a long length initially. Okay, so if we just do a couple more. You'll have to excuse the awkwardness of the tutorial because I'm trying to film this for you at the same time, so I'm working in an awkward position to what I'm normally used to. Right, okay, once you've done that, you'll see that you'll have your length of thin wire and your headband, which has got the wrapped wire on, which, as I said, it's very hard to see it with the naked eye, so I don't think the camera's going to even pick that up. Now what you want to do is to take a selection of the beads and, excuse me, one at a time, you're going to want to thread them onto the headband. Okay, so if you just thread on some of the beads, you can do this a singular bead at a time, or you can do it more than one bead. It's entirely up to you how you work it. If you do more than one bead, once you've threaded them on, you're going to have to hold some of them in your hand on the wire whilst you're carrying out the wrapping portion, because each individual bead is going to be wrapped on its own. Now, the chips and nuggets that you see here are quite small, and they're not going to look the same as the ones that I've used on this piece, because these are rounds. So what you need to remember is it depends on the sort of look that you're going for. If you wanted to go for a more uniformed look, then you would want to use rounds as opposed to chips and nuggets. Okay, so hold the bead that you've just placed on. As you did the wire, take your other beads in your other hand and hold the wire as well, and just wrap it around the end and pull it through, and that's your first one. let go of the next one, do exactly the same, and you start seeing the beads coming on. Now don't worry if you make any mistakes or things don't start to come out how you want them to. I always say there's no mistakes when you're making jewellery, because a lot of the times pieces that I've made, the best pieces, are actually born out of mistakes that I've made where I've really messed something up. So don't ever give up on anything. Try to make the best of it and just carry on. So that's a few on, and what I'll do is I will add a few more on and then show you the next bit. Okay, so I've done around 1/4 of the length, and I've got the long piece out to the right, and you can see the different beads that are on. Now, what you want to do next is to give them a bit more security. So what you're going to do is to take the long length and go back around in the opposite direction in between each bead. Now what this will do, it will not only secure them on a little bit better, but it will also help them stay in place. So you just go around in between each bead, under and over, keeping it taut as you go. Back across each of the beads, and then what we're going to do is, once you've gone that way, you're going to go back along so that your wire is back in the middle again. And there we have the wire back in the centre, and the beads are now much more secure. And you can see the black wire is a really good choice for coloured beads because it makes it really stand out, and I really like that effect. Now what you want to do, because this is just the front section, the rest of the band is going to be quite plain. So all you need to do is to keep wrapping the wire around and under until you get to the end. Once you're at the end, you don't want to cut off the excess wire that you've got. You want to leave that on for securing it at the end of completing your band. Now you'll notice that you've got the double end where the twist ends, and the looped section from where you initially folded the long length of the wire. And the loop is what we're going to use to secure this piece. So all you want to do is to just thread the wire through the loop twice, and that will just keep it nice and secure so it doesn't unravel. And then we're on to the second piece of the headband. Now we're on to the back piece of the headband. For the front, I've kept it quite straight, but now I've shaped this a little bit and it had quite a wiggle in it. So what I've done is I've accentuated that a bit just to give it a little bit of a different look. So what we now want to do is to decide how we're going to attach the flowers and the beads along the back. So on the piece that I did initially, you can see that we've got a flower, some beads, a flower, some beads, and then another flower with a main flower in the centre. I've already got made a couple of the little heart ones and 3 of these larger bright flowers. Now I think that I'm actually going to use a combination, and you can use either you can create your own flowers using different beads. It's entirely up to you. So I think what we're going to start off with is, if you get an idea of what you want to do in your mind. Now I want to start by attaching one of the large pink flowers around halfway through the bead section on the front, but I want to put it on the back band. So to do that, we're going to need to get a piece of wire up to this point. So again, if we cut a length of the thin wire and wrap it as we have already until we get to that point. And so, oops, so now that bit has been done, and we're about halfway along the length of the beads. Now we want to attach the flower, but we also need to have this piece of wire ready for attaching further beads. So just hold that off to the right and take your first flower. So if I take the one with the really long length, either side to show you, hold your band in place and take each end of the wire and just wrap it around to attach it. Make sure you hold the flower securely. It can be quite fiddly to start off with, and I know there's been times when I've tried doing things and I can't get them to stay on, so you just want to persevere with it, but once you've got the hang of it, you're going to be fine. Now don't worry about them flopping about, because remember, they're going to be on somebody's head, your head or your child's head, and so that they will sit a lot nicer once they're actually on the head. You can secure them up if you want to, or you can use a different bead, as I said, and then just take any excess wire and wrap it around, and now you should have 3. Now you can cut these strands off if you want, or you can use them, or you can just wrap them in to make sure that it's even more secure. I'm going to snip these ones off. And with the sharp ends, I'm just going to twist them around with my fingers, or you can use your flat nose pliers just to secure them in place. And then I'm just going to quickly go back around. I want to go back up to the flower. Now we're going to add some more beads on next. What I've done is I've snipped off the excess wire here, and I've just wrapped it around, and I've wrapped the wire back along so that it's in with the petals of the flower. Now the next part is to add these extra beads, and we want to go to just before the centre of the headband, following the shape of your wire, whether it's a wavy wire or a straight one. So add them exactly the same as before, 1 bead at a time, and wrap around, then go back to the start and back up again, wrapping between each individual bead. We have this part done now, so if you hold the 2 ends together, if I hold them even, you can see that it comes just before the centre. So you can see the headband coming together quite nicely. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to use the rule of 3. We're going to use 2 of the little heart flowers and 1 of the butterflies, the butterfly buttons that I've got, and we're going to make these the centre. So to attach one of these flowers, all you need to do is to pull your longest length of wire out to the side, and then take your stem from your heart flower and wrap it a couple of times around, and make sure that it's nice and secure. You can snip off the excess. Okay, and just tuck that under, and there's a bit more excess there. Okay, so we've got 1 of those on, and then if we add the second one on, And this can be slightly off to a different angle. It can stick out a little bit more, which I think I will stick this one out slightly. And it doesn't matter if the flower petals become dislodged, because you can always reattach them, reorganize them, and just take off the excess again. Okay, so then just organize your flower petals. Now what I want to do next is to add in the butterfly there, just at a slight angle, and the easiest way to do that is to thread the wire through the back of the button and just attach it by wrapping. And there we go, so the butterfly's on, and I've tidied up the petals a little bit, made so it's nice and secure. And next we need to just mirror what we've done on this side along this side, or you could just do a strand of beads, but I think it would be nice to have a symmetrical look to the back of the band. So I'm going to add some more of the dyed quartz on this side, and then the other pink flower. Right, so that's now been finished. I added another strand of the beads there and the other pink flower, which again, as I said, it's going to sit much nicer on the head. So I've wrapped the wire all the way down to the bottom again, and now's the time to make a decision. You can either add some more to the headband, or you can leave it as it is. I think personally this looks enough, and I'm actually quite happy with how it looks. So what I would like to do now is to attach the ends. So take the length of wire on the strand, on the piece of the headband that we've just done, and thread that through the loop on the other section, and do this again a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secure. Then what we want to do is take both ends and wrap them, and try the best that you can to cover the sharp ends of the actual ends of the wire, not the looped section. They can always be filed down if they're still sharp, that's fine. And then once you've done that, give that a trim, and all we need to do is to use the flat nose pliers and tuck the ends down. Oh, that one's come out. Tuck the ends down into that section, and do the same at the other end, into the centre of where you've wrapped it. And then once you've done that, you just need to go over it with your fingers and make sure there's no sharp edges. And then you just need to decide how wide apart you want the sides. So obviously the further apart they are, the more it will cover. So this bit would be towards the front of the head, and this bit would go further back. And here's the finished headband. It's extremely pretty, and I really like how it's turned out. I've shaped it around the head, and I really like the colours set up on the black wire. I think it's a really different look, but it's quite contemporary while being at the same time obviously inspired by the Edwardian headband. Now that I've got the head in front of me, I'll show you the other headbands as well. So this was the practice one that I did, and so this was more in keeping with the Edwardian theme. And as you can see, the pearls are very reminiscent of the Edwardian period, and the design with the sprays coming out and the little clusters and the two-tone idea is much more in keeping. So it's, you know, that's a very pretty look, and it could be one that you wanted to do as well. But I do like the bright colours and the contemporary twist. And I just wanted to show you finally a better look at the other one that I made, which is again a vintage inspired headband with lots of really amazing gemstones. The gemstones really are what is just beautiful about this headband. I'm really pleased with how it turned out, and the colours are very vintage. As you can see at the side, there's a lovely vine with peridot, there's mookaite flowers, and then the jasper and mookaite and Swarovski dragonflies. Now if you wanted to create something more contemporary like this, then you could use an aged bronze wire like the one here, which is like a dark golden brown. You could use the copper wire, and you can see the difference in the two wires there. Or you could use a gold or a silver coloured wire, and that would really be in keeping. And they really did like their gemstones in the Edwardian era, so don't be afraid to use brightly coloured stones at all. And as I said, you know, it can just be anything that you like. Now you've got a basic idea of what to do, you could create your own design. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I know it's my first proper jewellery tutorial, so I do hope everything was okay with it. If you do make something along these lines, I would absolutely love to see it. So please do get in touch on my blog and send me a picture, and I'd love to have a little gallery on my blog, maybe of designs that you've all done from my tutorials. That would be lovely. And next time is the 1910s, and we'll be looking at the styles there. It's sort of a gap stop period between the Edwardian era and the 20s. You start seeing more Art Nouveau, and you can see the move towards the Art Deco inspired pieces. So that's quite exciting. If you've got any ideas or anything you would like to request to be made, then do let me know, and I'll do my best to do you a tutorial. Again, thank you for watching, and take care.